Ooh, welcome to my cake kitchen. I am Gladys. I love cakes, and over here we make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate baking and decorating easily. If it's your first time you're meeting me, hello there. And I hope whilst today we are not baking, by the end of this video you'll find some value here. So consider subscribing, do all the things, the cringy things we beg you to. Like the video, hype the video, whatever you do. But we're just starting. It's just me over here. I'm not going to bore you because whilst we're primarily a baking channel, part of the community here on the lives is like chit chat videos about cake related subjects. And today is a cake related subject I'm going to be sharing with you. Some of my unusual customer experiences I have had. You will think cake making is all about flour, sugar, eggs, and generally, those are the ingredients you need to make a cake. But when I tell you that the experience of running a home bakery is a little more than that, you will be surprised. I don't have my eyelash. This is specifically an address to the people who live here on this channel, to your tapeters, to your dawns. Not that you care, but it's like a running joke. So if you don't understand what I'm referencing, I just want to get it out of the way because I have a secondary screen and I can see myself to the left and I look like an alien. I do, like sometimes when I don't know, I'm very expressive facially. So when I it just feels like I'm at you. When I have the lashes, it kind of tends to give me a better look. Why are we talking about appearance? Because we talk about it. So my eyes are a little sore today. They are very sensitive. I don't know why. I don't have my lash, but that's just beside the point. So if you thought baking is flour, sugar, eggs, and everything else in between, you are not wrong. But running a home bakery has some very unique experiences that you will be surprised if I told you. In part one of this series, I spoke about my experience, some of the unusual experience where, we were talking cakes and body parts with a customer. Weird, but if you see that video, you'll see the context. And when I ended up making a cake for a person who I was cheated on with, okay? So someone was cheating on me, and the bit on the side would eventually show up for a cake that I made for them. Why is this story important? Well, if you watch that video, you'll see the context, which is that making cakes will actually expose you to certain experiences that you would never plan for. So today is part two of some of those unusual experiences. I'll get straight to the story. Grab yourself a cup of tea. And unfortunately, if this is your very first video of watching me, look, we have more tutorials. We have more informative educational style tutorials to help you navigate baking. So if you're not up for the story time, story style, a little bit chit chat, gossipy, move on, okay? If it's not for you, it's not for you. But I produce all sorts of content here, but generally when we come to the chit chat video styles, they are more for just giving you an in-depth behind the scene, things you would never imagine are or would probably be. So I hope that is the intention and heart of this video. So I don't know which one to start with. I'll probably start with the one that is sitting heavy on my head. The one time I was making a cake, and come to find out, I was making a cake for someone who was cheating on their partner, and the partner was my regular customer. I'm not going to name names, and this is a story from a hell of a long time ago. The circumstances, as far as I know, have changed. So I don't think anybody in my life knew how this story came by my doorstep. But I thought when I started making cakes, my life will be just stand in my kitchen, make a cake, give it to a customer, be happy. They come back with some great feedback, and That's it. Unfortunately, that is not what I signed up for, apparently. Because tell me why. For a very long time. So let's label these people. When necessary, if I'm applying names, know that these are not their real names, okay? I had family A. Family A consisted of man and wife and kids, okay? And I was like the family cake maker. I made cakes for all of them. I made cakes for their very like family events. Think about birthdays, anniversaries, whatever. And every time they make the cake, wife and the man will come and pick the cake. Sometimes wife will send man over to pick up the cake. And mind you, this was like maybe up to multiple times a year because there were like children involved. So I will make all of these cakes and all of that. And when you begin to make cakes for people and they are very memorable moments, you inadvertently become a part of their story because you end up being exposed to some of the family stories that you will otherwise not have known about them. For instance, when I had to make them a christening cake at some point in time, I came to realize the story underlying the christening, which made it super more special because there were like preceding losses and very emotional issues over there, which kind of made the cake very, very sensitive. Like the cake had to represent this heavy emotion of gratitude, thanksgiving. So cake making, I say that to say cake making is not just flour, sugar and eggs. Cake making is about understanding not just any cake making. There are categories of cake making, and if you're a custom cake maker where the customer centers as the subject matter, the customer, their story, their needs center as the subjects of your artistry, it adds like texture, storytelling, and context, which also makes it more expensive. Because if I plugged another person's cake and just designed it because that is what I can do, it takes away from the customer's personal story. So that, if not for anything, I hope today you will learn that one of the reasons why custom cakes are expensive is because not only is it tailored to you, but it tells a story. It takes the story from why somebody wants a regular chocolate cake to why a chocolate cake becomes central to the cake tiers. Because maybe on a very bad day when they were having a bad time, somebody gave them a chocolate cake and suddenly they were happy and it was the best chocolate cake they had. And this was a long time ago. And fast forward, after a few miscarriages, they want a cake and they want to replicate a chocolate cake that brings back the same feeling of happiness. Do you know what I mean? So it kind of makes cakes very, very different. And fortunately for me, I fall in that category where I couldn't begin to tell you some of the very personal stories, one of which I will tell in a moment after this. So I say that to say I had been involved in the family for a little while now, and I've come to know some of their very personal and intimate stories about why certain cakes are important to them. Remember, because the family has children too, the cakes I have made during that time also represented the children, their character and different things. And you almost watch these children grow, okay? So this was an ongoing thing where they will order cakes and they will come and get the cake. Remember, the family is man, wife, children, okay? Fast forward a couple of years later, after making them a few cakes, one time, woman orders cake. It was a very specific cake for a very specific moment. And except one of the running themes in the past, when I've spoken to them about cakes, it was very straightforward. This time there was a bit of difficulty in it. She really, really, really wanted this cake, but there was a lot of difficulty in nailing down the collection of the cake. They lived quite a distance away from me, which I sincerely appreciated, especially when they had to travel all the way down to come and collect a cake from me. Because the truth is, they could get a cake anywhere between wherever they were and the travel down. I am sure they would have found a cake maker. But for some reason, because they had started with me before they moved away, they wanted to stick with the consistency of product. And obviously, because of the relationship we had. So I sincerely appreciated the effort and time they would always put to come and collect the cake. Except this particular time, it was very, very difficult for them to kind of nail down a collection time. And try as I was to understand what the issue was, it was like, because in the past, remember, woman orders cake. Sometimes man shows up for the cake. Sometimes it's both of them. This time she was like, oh, he's not around. He's not around. He's not around to pick up. He's not around. So anyway, bottom line, she had to pay for a taxi. And the taxi was only a couple of pounds short of the price of the cake. I tell you, that is how much the travel was. And at some point I considered, maybe you have another option of ordering a cake close by. And she was just adamant that she wanted this cake. So what I did was I added some extra value from my side, like in terms of the flowers they wanted. I opted for some different options to kind of just bring some life to the cake, because I just felt really bad for them having to pay for a whole taxi to come and collect this cake. So when they got to me and they collected the cake, on their way, on the way, there was an accident, as in an accident, I'll clarify with the detail. At a roundabout or something, the driver happened to slam on their brakes, and how they had placed the cake went flying. So it bumped and some of the decorative items fell apart. The cake was still intact, so that was a good thing. This will lead to her contacting me soon after she got to her destination. So the conversation was like, oh, did the cake get there safely and all of that? Because she called me, she was like, this is what has happened, what can I do? So in the guidance that I was giving her about what they needed to do about, she needed to do about this cake, this conversation about why they couldn't come, why the transport of the cake was difficult, as in the collection, because then the partner wasn't available. So it was in that conversation that she was like, she sort of, I think in the moment of overwhelm, she blurted out that, oh, they're having some problems and that she is hopeful that it will be resolved. And she was a person of faith, so she was sort of like, even though the situation was very difficult, what she was sharing was rather difficult. I could sense the overwhelm, and I was quite surprised by the detail, because when we were discussing the collection of the cake, it was more like her mode of transport, which is at this point her partner, wasn't available for work reasons. Fast forward, in this moment when we are discussing after the collection, the accident, I am now getting the information about how like things are very difficult, and it's a family with children, and when you're going through such a difficult time, it can be awfully like really difficult. So as she's telling me, she's like, oh, she's hopeful that things will work out, but it is just a lot. And she did share quite a bit of stuff over there that in my head, I was like, I'm always surprised by those revelations. But fast forward, I think exactly 2 weeks later, a random person I had never met, don't have a relationship with, consider this a random person who had sought me out online, and they wanted a cake. So I was dealing with this inquiry like any of my general inquiries that I'll be dealing with. Mind you, I don't know this person. It could be anybody. So after the cake was made, so this is 2 weeks post this issue with a wife, and then a couple of days later, somebody else calls to order a cake. And my inquiry process is normally rather formal. If you find me online, there's a contact form, which is the inquiry. So this dropped in my mail. And when I got the email, I responded. So communication was via email until I spoke to them. They lived locally. They found me online. They said, at least that's what they said. They found me online and they wanted this particular cake. And then we discussed it. Part of the discussion at that stage with cakes is that normally we discuss collection in advance, just so that I can gauge and also give you a collection time window, because that is also important. Because if you don't agree the collection time window, you leave yourself open to customers who will show up any time of the day, and that might mess your routines and plans for the day. Anyway, so during the discussion and everything else to tie down the order, they confirmed a collection time for a day of the weekend that they will collect the cake. So all of those details are added to an invoice and sent over. Now, whether you're collecting the cake or somebody else, it happens all the time. I may confirm some details, collection time, and they say, oh, I'll come and collect. And come the day, they call me and they're like, I am not coming, I'm sending somebody else. So for me, I am always like open to, as long as you're sticking with the collection time, that's fine. Okay, tell me why on a weekend I contact this person via text. I'm like, the cake is done, send them pictures and all. Who turned up at my door? Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. The same man whose wife had spoken to me and had told me things were really tough and they were going through a very difficult time in their marriage and that they were hopeful and praying. Tell me why the man is at my door. And guess what? When I contacted this customer, like this stranger who wanted the cake, when I contacted them to say the cake is done, it's here, could they confirm when they're on the text they sent me back was, oh, my husband is on his way. Well, at that time I didn't know. Now I know different, don't I? Okay, now I know. At the time I didn't know what husband was showing up at my door, do I? So I get the text to say my husband is on my way. Knock knock on my door. Who is this? Husband of somebody else. And I know that because I know this man. You know what? That wasn't my day. I just handed the cake over and just looked to the left. Because what am I going to say? Call the wife and be like, why is your husband? That ain't my issue. Okay? Come to find out. It gets worse. The cake gets collected and the cake was headed to a social event that I was going to be present at. So not only am I supposed to be this random cake maker, but I am supposed to be at the social event that I didn't know my cake was going to be present for. Guess who I find? The supposed stranger who ordered the cake, the man who I know is married, okay? And come to find out, I know the stranger, and by the way, at the social at the social gathering we were, I was there with my very good friend. Tell me who was in the good friend's DMs. The same man. Okay, that's all. Auntie Jackie. Auntie Jackie, I was determined to get through the story without having to break the seriousness of this part. So I'm here. Hello, how are you? It didn't get better, did it? And yes, at the social gathering, mind you, this person who had ordered a cake from me, and up until the point of collection, we were supposed to be complete strangers, didn't know each other, but I turned up at the social event and turns out they were somebody I know. But I had no skin in this game. I'm just a cake maker. Your mess and nothing to do with me. And I had to still uphold the professional conduct of, I made your cake, but whatever is happening behind the scene. Tell me why the other woman now, which is this stranger in the whole like story, it's kind of side-eyeing me and being a total like petty cow about it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna the tangle web men weave, okay? And that, so you see, when I tell you cake making is not just flour, sugar, and butter, it's better than that. And that story has lived with me because eventually, like, I never said anything because what was I going to say? Like, I don't know these people. The only connection I have with them is cake, okay? They buy cakes from me, so not my problem. Not that I dismiss that it as not my problem. My heart broke for the wife because it seems like the issue, there is a character issue with the partner, which is this man. There is, because not only was, eventually we found out, not only was he then seeing this stranger who is running around telling the population and myself that this is her husband, and we all know this man is married. Okay, not only that, but he is also in somebody else's DM that I know and I am friends with, and we run in this. So it's like messy boots all along, right? But years down later, come to find out, broke up with the wife eventually, settled with the other woman. I still see the other woman, like, yeah, that's it. A tangle web of lies. And yeah, you wouldn't think that making cakes will have you making cakes for side chicks and everything else in between. But hey, I think this is the first time I've revisited that story, because I felt so awful thinking about it even. But then again, I've been making cakes nearly 12 years now, so it's over 10 years, and this was like a long time ago. So if it was yesterday's story or in the last year or two, you probably won't hear it from me. But much of this issue has resolved itself. So yeah, random people ordering cakes and the drama that they come along with. Yep. What would you do though? What would you do if you were me in this story? What would you do? You know, would you say something to the wife? How would you handle this? I've told you why I did what I did. Like, there was nothing I could do. I couldn't call the wife and be like, oh, your husband is here. Like, that's just adding to the mess. For all you know, she knew. And if he was everywhere else in everybody's DM, no, they didn't stay married. Like, the man eventually, like years later, the wife would come back and order another cake, and then she will admit that they had broken up. You know, I sympathized with her, but I couldn't tell her what I knew. Okay, so the family eventually broke up. He ended up with the stranger, which is the woman who ordered the cake from me later, because the stranger eventually turned out not to be a stranger. They turned out to be somebody I knew around the same social circles. So the man left his wife, or they broke up. I don't know if he left. That correction. I don't know if he left, but he broke up with his wife, ended up with the other woman, and they now have a family of their own. I guess it's a happily ever after, whatever that looks like. And my portion of it is, even eventually when they ended up together, they'd make an order for a cake, and I turned it down because I just didn't want the mess at my door. Like, I made excuses about I just didn't want a replay of him turning at my door, like, and plus because she, the stranger, after the first cake and we encountering each other in the social circles, and obviously knowing that, oh, we know of each other, because the stranger wasn't very kind, as in they just ended up, you know, that sort of woman who starts like being petty for no reason and impolite to you, and all you've ever done is just do your job, right? For me, it was my job to make a cake. I don't care about your business over here. But I guess because of the embarrassment or whatever she felt about how this whole issue played out, I felt like she was trying to victimize me by just like side-eyeing me and being impolite towards me. So I guess eventually, when they didn't see or feel like I had any part to add to any of this, they resolved to coming back to order cakes from me. So imagine a man I had known who was married for a very long time and bought cakes with me for a very long time, and then I find him sort of cheating, literally, and then he goes off with the other woman, and now him and the other woman now wants to buy cakes from me. I was like, no, not my cup of tea. Okay, so every time they came back and wanted to get a cake from me, I would find a reason not to, as in whether I was busy, my diary was booked, and that was the end. I never made cakes for them, and that was it. So Samni Begal, or I can't call the name right. Well, we don't sell cheeseburgers here, and if you want to say hi, that is fine. Do you want, Auntie Jackie says, do you want fries with your cheeseburger? And what sauce? Do you want black bean sauce? I don't know. So yeah, my encounter, my unusual customer encounters that I've had, that's one of those that sticks out. Another one, I made a cake for a person who, this was a complete stranger. Again, it was an online order, came through, communicated back and forth. And I made the cake, okay? The cake was supposed to be a surprise birthday with for a girlfriend. It was a guy ordering the cake for a girlfriend. So come the day, the collection time that we had agreed for them to collect was a weekend. They were supposed to come and collect the cake. And normally what I'll do is the night before, because even it's only in very dire circumstances that I would leave the cake to almost like the closest collection time. As if your cake is due for, let's say, 1 p.m. today, chances are your cake would have been done last night and refrigerated, or worst case scenario, it is completed by 10 a.m. in the morning. So perhaps an hour or two before your allocated collection time, I would update you or send you photos or all of these things, just to kind of let you confirm that the cake is done and to probably nudge you to see. So it tells me a lot when within the hour I contact a client and I don't hear from them. Most of the time they do. Like if I send them a picture, they come back, they're like, thank you, I'm on my way. Or sometimes I tell them, let me know if you're on your way, just so that I can be sure to be around, that sort of thing. Except when I contacted this customer with the pictures, never heard anything from them. And within the hour, I was beginning to get anxious because I was getting ready for a different appointment. So it was important that they collected their cake within the allocated hour. So up until the hour that their time was due to collect, I waited and I texted them twice and I didn't hear back from them. And so when the hour came, because normally say if your cake collection is at 1 o'clock, your collection window is between 1 and 2. So within their 1 hour collection window, I text them again. I was like, oh, I contacted you. I'm just letting you know that I have an appointment. And sometimes the appointment is told to you long before, especially if I sense that you are unlikely to make the time. Anyway, I didn't hear back from them. So the hour passed, which is if their collection time was at 10 o'clock, by 11 o'clock, they were still not here, which is very unusual for the criteria of clientele in that category. Most of them are very prompt. If you told them, there is a very particular group of people that if you told them your collection is at 10 o'clock, they are here at 9:58. Okay? Never late, very prompt. So for such a person to be late, I was like, that's unusual. So I text them again. I'm like, I have an appointment at half an hour past the collection time. So let me know. I am going to be back later this time. So I offered them an alternative collection time and I still didn't hear from them. And at that point, I don't get precious about it, as in how dare you. At that point, I think I almost aim for what could be the worst reason. I don't assume that they are unabiding of my time or disrespectful of me as a business. I just assume that something terrible may have happened, maybe from an important or an emergency health incident, or a change in family circumstance that is so urgent it has probably taken them away. And trust me, I've done this for a long time, so I'd like to think I have a very good gauge of the people I deal with and what I expect or assume of them. So I wasn't quite wrong in my assumption something terrible may have happened. So I went about my day and I just let them know that at some point, if they really wanted the cake, they should let me know, because my appointment would have taken me out of the house there was like an hour or two window that I wasn't going to be around, and then I'll be back for a couple of hours because for just clarity and context, the cake was to be collected in the morning, and I had somewhere to be from that dear collection time 2 hours away. I wouldn't have been here, and then I would have been back for say an hour at home because I could make that adjustment, and then I'd be gone for the rest of the day again. So I wasn't going to be home, and they were the only collection. So I let them know that my collection window, if they missed their allocated time, I could make an adjustment for maybe up to 3 hours post their missed time, and that whatever the case is, they should just let me know and I can make an adjustment to accommodate them. All of these messages went unheard. So let's say 6 hours later, I thought, I normally will not call a customer who has always maintained a consistent theme of communication via text or email. You know, if what I need from you has been answered or requested and written down, there's no need. And this was one particular customer that we didn't have a talking relationship at all. Most of the time I like to talk to my customers, but the only time this customer spoke to me was when we were discussing the intention for what the cake was for, which is the telecom consultation. Once we finished the consultation, there wasn't anything. And actually they didn't, Auntie Jackie is asking what was a deposit given. Yes, they paid for a deposit. They didn't just pay for a deposit, they paid for the entire cake, because when I sent their invoice out, their cake was also within a 7-day time frame. Because normally any cake before the 7 days, I would just take a deposit just to reassure you. But if you're getting a cake within a 7-day time frame, what I deem as a short notice cake, you're paying the full amount. So the cake was completely paid for, and I had no qualms about whether the cake was collected or not. If anything, I was more concerned that they will come and collect their cake because the cake is done. And because I didn't hear from them 6 hours post their collection time, it was early evening. I thought, okay, let me give them a call. So I made a courtesy call. The phone rang once. They cut the call, and then I text them. So it's, you know, when the call goes through and it cuts and it goes straight to voicemail. And guess what? When I called and the call cut and it went to voicemail, I just texted him like, I am so sorry to have to call you, but I'm just checking if you're okay. And guess what? Just before it hit, I just checked to get okay. I get a text straight back that with the B word written in caps, like she B with 3 exclamation signs that said, she cheated on me. Yeah, that was it. That was it. What do I say after? What do you say? What do you say? Like, oh, so what do we do with the cake? So, yeah, I had nothing to say. I don't know. I don't even know if it was appropriate to say, shoot, I'm sorry. And now I'm thinking, he clearly wanted to order this cake for a girlfriend. And now I'm getting the raw end when she's like, when I get the text, B, she's cheated on me. It's like, what do I do with this? Like, do I say sorry? Okay, what happens to the cake? Like, the sorry will always be constant. The sorry will always be like, I'll say, oh, I'm so sorry. What do I say after? What would you do? What would you do? What would you do? Because yeah, that took me for a hot minute. So it took me a minute. Like, I had to actually look at the B and think, first of all, we don't talk like that over here. So you must be so annoyed then, right? But obviously I'm telling this in retrospect, where it's like the shock, I just didn't know what to do with it. So I just didn't say anything, and I left it. And the next day, you know what? This feels very odd to admit, only because in retrospect, I am looking at this scenario rather differently, and I am a changed person now. Because when I started this whole thing, I was a whole different person in a whole different category with my own issues, and the way I saw things was completely different. So I will tell you, I have a very different take to, you know, the stories where someone says, I told my manager my mom died, and they didn't say anything, and the next day they asked me about something like professional, as in when do you come back from say bereavement leave. So stay with me on this one. And these random stories of people saying, oh, I told my manager this and they didn't say anything to me, and they came back with, say, some professional requests. Not all of them stem from a lack of humanity, okay? Not all of them. I think each story and each circumstance can be looked at in context to what is happening. So unless your manager is a complete a-hole who has constantly been so dehumanizing of you, and your experience with this person lacks any humanity and a warm relationship, then it is a reflection of their nature and character that you tell them, say, your family member passed or your dad passed or something traumatic is happening to you, and first of all, they don't acknowledge you, they don't say anything to you, and the next time you have to encounter them, they are giving you a professional like request about something. And in that moment, I can completely understand how invalidating, okay, how invalidating, how unseen you may feel, which then makes your entire experience of your trauma so sore. I completely see it. I'll tell you what I was thinking and what I felt when I was talking to when discussed, because I don't know them, I don't have an experience with them, and humanity will have you say, I am so sorry, right? And I wanted to say that, but for the very first time in my life with no much experience, okay, I'd like to think of myself as an incredibly kind person and so empathetic of situations. I worked in support care, support services, and was a carer for a very long time. I have no doubts my character does not lack empathy. Of all my faults, I would describe myself as a kind, empathetic person who knows what to do in a situation of grief or difficult circumstances. Except this was very different. First of all, I was only involved with this person on a completely professional relationship. I had a cake to offer them that they bought from me. So it's like there is an exchange here that is very transactional. And I, for the very first time, had to think, is it appropriate to even be in the space to address them on a personal note? Never mind they've been cheated on. Yeah. But there is also a cake that is worth some money here, and I'm now stuck with it. I'm not mad. It's a free cake. Somebody would eventually have it. But there is also like a professional guideline for me, because what do I do with this cake? Especially if you are not telling me exactly what to do with it. Because if I don't do anything with it that suits you or instructed by you, I am probably going to get a request from you demanding the cake down the line. And what am I going to do with that? So for me, I was more interested in fulfilling the obligation, which is now naturally causing me a bit of angst. Angst that I should not be having to handle. Do you see what I'm saying? So the next day, my response to them was it wasn't like, it didn't lack empathy, but looking back, it lacked warmth, because it was like, I am so sorry for your experience, okay? However, it went from, I am sorry for your experience to, however, could you advise me? If they are in the throes of a heartbreak and not knowing what to do with themselves, they do not want to do anything with that cake. That cake reminds them of this horrid person that they don't want to even think about. What business do I have, like, asking them to even... But can you see where this contention is now? Like, because if I don't ask, I can't make an assumption. And cake is perishable. The quality of the cake is determined by how many number of days I can store it for. And then the quality begins to decline, which is directly in proportion to the consequence that will come with it. Because if he shows up 5 days later after he's figured out, okay, I'm done with her, but I'm not going to lose my money. Cake maker, where's my cake at? What am I going to do? Make another cake or give them a cake that is 5 days old? Can you see? So I had a different set of decisions to make. And in that moment, there wasn't a very clear-cut outcome for me. I was just, every decision I made thereafter was from a place of, let's get out of this so that this doesn't get worse. Which is what ties into, say, if you had a manager who you told something to, and if you didn't have a relationship with them and next day they came and they were very straitjacket and very straight to the point without warmth, sometimes it's not because they're ignoring you. It's because they probably don't know what to say or do for you in that moment that may be deemed appropriate. And caught up in the web of what professional conduct, they may just be worried about, I don't want to make it worse for you. And so their panic and inner self-dialogue is showing up as, oh, they don't care about me and they don't see me. They probably see you more than you think, so much so that this whole issue is like, this is their face. If you could see outside of their straight talking and no warmth kind of, it's like, hey, mom, dad. Yeah, that was me. So when this person came back and, well, when I text them back next day, they didn't respond. And I made a habit of, oh, this gets worse for me, right? Every day I made a thing to just remind them, just reminding you that I can save the cake, I can freeze it. On the 5th day, because I had given them I had just linked them the terms and conditions about how the cake was a perishable thing, and fast forward the 5 days after, I will not be able to give them the cake or refund the cake. And I never heard back from them. If you wonder what I did with the cake, I repurposed it and then gave it to a family friend. Body piercing saved my life. Howdy friend, great to be here. Body piercings. And for Martha, hello there. I'm kind of getting confused because for Martha, I've come to know you as Faso, you know. So welcome to the chat, great to have you. And yes, those two unique experiences being a cake maker, okay? From finding out about a cheating partner to a partner who's been cheated on, who left your cake uncollected. Okay, and the confusion I would experience in all of this. I'll tell you how I grew as a person when presented with an emotional situation. So fast forward a couple of years later, I had advanced in my cake making business. My life was over here. You learn with experience, right? So I say that to say the experience of being called a B, she cheated on me, like that was like, I don't know if now looking back, now that I'm talking about it, I don't know if the text was like B, she cheated on me, or he was addressed like as in, I wish can we use the B word? It was, I don't know if they were trying to say B cheated on me or B she cheated on me. I can't tell because the B and cheated on me was divided by an exclamation mark. I don't know if it's me they were addressing, but I'd like to think it was more the situation. Nothing to do with me. I was just cutting it straight over here. That's all. I do. I'm okay. I don't know if it's allergens and a reaction to the season. My eyes feel a bit sore, which has made me a bit tired. I addressed that at the start of the channel, at the start of the live. I said, I feel a little bit tired, not because I'm tired, but my eyes are a bit sensitive and sore and weepy. I know you can't tell. So that's why I don't have eyelashes. I made a whole sing-song about it. So thanks for noticing that. But I am okay. I am actually very well. But yeah, I couldn't even put mascara. Because you know what? Why are we talking about beauty stuff? We do because we're comfortable with it. Like, don't underestimate the small things that like beauty products do for us women. At least I'll speak for myself. Like, it makes a huge difference. When I go back and watch videos where I have like my falsies, which are the false lashes. Shall we give them a name? Where I have the falsies and I have mascara or something. It makes a huge difference because in the lighting and the camera, it feels so different. But when I take them off, I feel like an alien, especially when I do this at you. It's like, God, stop freaking your eyes out at me. So yeah, ignore me. It wasn't going to stop me from showing up today. Okay, so we are here now. We are here. Okay, but nothing to do with me. And plus, I'm on the run. I'm just gonna have to finish this live and head off to some other appointment. So I shot back in from an appointment and had to come. I'm like, nothing is stopping me from showing up today, because even though we don't have lives on Friday generally, especially if I don't have anything to bake, I wasn't here on Wednesday. I broke my promise. I was here Tuesday. I was here yesterday. So I thought I'll come back today. We'll finish our chat and then we'll go back and prep for Easter. And then maybe I'll put some videos out. So what are we doing for Easter, people? Let's know. Gladys's cakes and makeup tutorials. No, I don't do makeup tutorials. I don't know. I don't do makeup tutorials. But yeah, I do have makeup product because a girl has to try and look presentable. Okay, people? That's just by the way. I have some nuts here. So what are we doing for Easter? But yeah, Auntie Jackie says nothing to do with you. I don't think it had anything to do with me. And I actually have like empathy for that. But yeah, I repurposed the cake and gave it, because I froze it for a while and then repurposed it. It was a cake that could easily be repurposed as well. So I gave it away to a family member's birthday. And yeah, that was it. So leading that to another emotional subject of cake making and customers. I had a customer contact me. It was a random weekend. It was actually it was a Saturday evening. I was over here like in a desperate bid to finish a cake that was due the Sunday. And then I get a call from this customer. And it was an online order, like the customers who find my contact online and then call my business number. Normally, when I'm busy in the kitchen, my phone is either used for a podcast or recording or something. But this time the phone was just lying there. So I turned it, rang, I picked up. And there was this lady on the phone. She had a very sweet, calming voice over there. And she was like, oh, but she sounded very like frazzled and a little bit all over the place, but sounded so sweet. So it was like, oh, I am sorry, but I want to order some cupcakes. They specifically wanted some cupcakes, and they specifically wanted a particular number. I think they wanted about 13 cupcakes, and cupcakes come in boxes of 12. I'm like, 13 cupcakes. And I think that now in hindsight, I know they were aligning the number of cupcakes to the servings, you know. So they wanted 13 cupcakes, and they wanted the cakes like to be specifically made for the Monday. And this is Sunday evening, Saturday evening. And I'm in the middle of a busy cake thing. So I'm like, naturally, it would be a no for me. Naturally, it would be a no for me, you know. So, you know, and normally when I say no to customers, I try to be as nice as possible. So it was like, oh, hello, thank you, but I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Monday is too short a time, especially for the request you're making. And sometimes it's not that it's impossible. But remember, we've had conversations about boundaries, right? It was a boundary issue rather than a possibility issue. Could I make those 13 cupcakes within the short time frame? It was possible. I just didn't find the need especially in the midst of what I was doing, to kind of stretch myself out. And then no, and for 13 cupcakes, what was in it for me, right? So as time has gone on, you have empathy for customers, but sometimes you have to assert your boundary to protect yourself. And the protection here is that I'm already strung out. I don't want the extra labor. And that was the simple reason. But that didn't mean I couldn't communicate. I was very empathetic. So I was like, I am so sorry. Monday is just too close to the time, and it will be slightly difficult to organize the things in time. So when I said that, because they sounded a little bit frazzled when they called me, my intention wasn't to make it worse for them, even though I was saying no. And sometimes as a person, you've got to have the discernment to approach a situation. And even if you can't make it better, don't leave it worse, you know? So could I just say, no, I'm fully booked? Yes, I could do that. And I've done that in the past. Could I give any one of many reasons that I know could have sent them off their merry way? Of course. But because I had established rapport with them, and the conversation was more like in a tone where I just wanted to reassure them, even though I didn't want to make the cake, I had to take a little more conversational and approachable approach to speaking to them. So I was like, I am so sorry. Monday is just too close. It's Saturday, 5 p.m. It's going to be hard to kind of organize the stuff. I can make some recommendations, but quick question. That's where the trouble starts. Believe me, the trouble started right here. Because when I went, quick question, why did you leave it too late? The moment I finished that question, I don't think I was prepared for what was headed straight at me. Because then in that moment, when I went, why did you leave it too late? She broke down in tears. She was like, the cakes are for my husband. I'm inviting his 13th. He's died. That was it. He's died. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it just broke my heart in that moment to realize that my inconvenience was so insignificant to the enormous emotion this woman was experiencing over the end of the phone. Okay. And remember, I told you the subject of somebody who got cheated on, the cake didn't get picked up, and I gave you a whole spiel about what I didn't know what to do with that. Now I knew what to do, because then in that moment, my intention was, okay, this is very horrible. This has nothing to do with me. But if I had met this human being at a bus stop and they were crying their eyes out, would I just pretend this is not my problem and just walk away? Or I will extend them some humanity and acknowledge them and talk to them? And the answer was very simple. I would talk to them. And so I had to stay on the phone with this woman. So when she was like, the cakes are for my husband and his friends, because my husband's friends, I'm inviting them over for an anniversary meal because my husband, he died. The phone in that moment, like there was like a pin drop silence, like, because I didn't know what to say next, but I knew that if I didn't make the right decision, the next couple of whatever happens next would just make this woman's life worse. And that wasn't what I was batting for. So just in that moment, I said to her, by this time I had, obviously in my contact with her, she told me her name. So let's call her Teresa. That's not her name. So I went, Teresa, thank you for sharing that. I am incredibly sorry this has happened. Okay, if you don't mind, Teresa, I know it's awkward. It feels really awkward. But think of us at a bus station. If you want to talk to me, it's fine. If you don't want to talk to me and you just want to stay silent of the phone, know that I'm here. And if you feel comfortable to hang up on the phone, you can do that in your own time. You don't have to do anything. But I just want you to know that I am here if you just feel like you want someone to hear you. Now, on the subject of the cakes, don't worry about it. It's I'm a cake maker. I can make them for you. Because in that moment, it didn't matter my inconvenience, because I told you it wasn't an impossible issue. It was an inconvenient issue. And in that moment, humanity had to supersede my need for convenience. I mean, what would it cost me to make 13 cupcakes? It's not that serious. I could make them, okay? The boundary will be enforced where necessary, but I choose to relax the boundary or maintain it. And in this moment, my inconvenience was going to pale insignificantly to the enormous emotion and condition this woman was in. So I'm like, don't worry about the cupcakes. Just, I can make them for you. You don't have to talk about them now. If you feel comfortable to get off the phone and you don't talk to me, just text me whatever you need and I will sort them out for you. So she was like, thank you, but you don't have to do it. And she was crying. She was like, I'm like, don't worry about it. I'll sort it. I will sort them out for you. So eventually we didn't talk or anything. She stayed on the phone. She was like, you don't have, I'm like, I'll sort them for you. Don't worry. She was just like, okay. And then eventually she was like, oh, I've got to go now. And then she put down the phone. So an hour or two later, she texted me the husband's name, and then she sent me a picture of them and him, which just made it more heartbreaking. Because imagine, she was on the phone wanting to get these cakes done for this man who had passed. And I am over here like living in my world and trying to enforce a boundary, right? But when she sent the photos, it made it more tangible that you can see the person. Like the photo she had sent was them she said, at their favorite spot, and a photo of him. A very young guy who seemed to have passed so soon. Like, that was heartbreaking. So anyway, I took the photos. My edible printer was working, but not now, and it's broken. So I can't help you if you come back with an emotional sob story. I can't. But yeah, I had to get to it on the Monday morning because remember, it was Saturday evening. So I couldn't do anything. Sunday was a busy day for me. So Monday morning, I baked the cupcakes. The cupcakes were due for the dinner on the Monday. Was it Monday? Yeah. So the cupcakes were due for the dinner. And this kind of order kind of took a whole different, turn on its own. And the reason was I couldn't go back to ask them for an invoice. Like, it was one of those things where business didn't matter. It was like, I have a skill and an expertise to bring to humanity, and let's just do that and move on. Like, if I never met this woman in my life and I had the chance to make her cupcakes for nothing and didn't expect anything in response, I wouldn't mind. If anything, to make her day, you know? And that was also coming from a place that I will tell you why this mattered. So I didn't go back to seek an invoice, which must have made them feel like I wasn't going to make the cakes. But all the information I needed, they had sent me, because when they sent me the photo and they told me how they wanted these replicated, I asked the simple questions that I needed, the dietary preferences and all of that. And so Monday came and I got the cupcakes done. And so by the time I got the cupcakes done and I contacted them, they said they were coming to collect the cakes, but the time they said they wanted to collect the cakes wasn't convenient for me because I had an appointment, the time slot, and that was their only time slot. So I offered to kind of drop the cakes off to them, right? So we agreed at a time for the collection, and on my way, because they had told me where they were, but they hadn't sent me the address. So I was on my way, because when they said, oh, where they were, I knew the location. So I'm like, oh, I'm very familiar with the area. And I'm like, I told them the distance between my location and theirs. And so when I set off in haste, I hadn't asked them for a postcode that would take me there. And so at some point I had to pull up and text them for a postcode. And it took a while for the postcode to come. So now I'm like frazzled. I'm like, if they don't send me the postcode, maybe they've changed their mind. And at this point, remember, the cupcakes were not paid for. A deposit was not taken or anything, because I just felt like I just couldn't find the emotional space to kind of go and talk about money to them. I was more concerned about making these cupcakes. Remember, they'd asked for 13 cupcakes. I made a box and a half, a dozen and a half, which was 18 cupcakes. So at some point, the delay in getting the postcode had me a little bit panicked. The good thing, though, is that they eventually came and they said they had gone out for a walk with their dog and the phone was left. So all this time I was trying to reach them. They were on a dog walk, so they couldn't see. And so when they saw the text, they were also just about to go out or something, and they wanted the cakes to be left on the outside, the weather, like for something. So I guess I look at it now that, okay, it was significant. They were cupcakes, right? But you think, if I made the cupcakes and they wanted the cupcakes left on the outside, but I was more like, this woman's husband has passed away. She wants these cupcakes. I made them. I can't just go and leave them outside when the weather is not great. What if? So I was more determined to get the cupcakes to her in person. Eventually, after all the faff, she sent me the postcode to her address, pulled up at a very nice country house that was located in the middle of nowhere. Beautiful place, which was actually very surprising to me. But I've been pleasantly surprised, because I normally don't have any expectation of anything. So pulled up in this beautiful place. Walking to the door was like, why am I here? You know, sometimes I felt a real sense of imposter syndrome, right? But at the time, they had gone to a side of their house and they were walking back with their dog. So they came back, they opened their door, like they could see me and they could have met me somewhere on the compound. But they went into the house, opened the door wide. And it's like one of those things where, think about Architectural Digest, where they knock on the door and you open, you're like, come in. So when she opened the door and she looked dead at me, it was in my head, I'm like, am I supposed to walk in? So I took my shoes off, walked in. Beautiful, like, is it foyer, whatever they call it, like those houses you walk in and there's a big. So I walked in and we sort of just acknowledged each other, because it's been such an awkward experience for both of us, because this is the woman who calls me and randomly cries to me on my shoulders, and then suddenly I walk in and I'm seeing this woman who, on my everyday dealings, I probably would never encounter her in my social circle or like in my life of what I do, like we would never meet, and now I'm in her home. So that was a bit awkward for a minute, and even to make it more awkward for me, but the awkward is not a bad thing, right? It's just unusual for me, because I just make cakes and now I'm in this place that I don't know. Should I'm courteous, but sometimes you find yourself in a place where you're like, what do? I can't breathe. And to add to the awkwardness, one of the photos she sent me to add to the cakes was like a blown up picture of her husband that was in the hallway as an artwork. Beautiful photo. So when I looked at the photo and I looked at the cakes that were in front of me, it all made sense what was important to this woman. So I stood there. I was just about to hand her the cakes, and she was stood there literally. So she stood there, I'm here, and she is like literally so tearful. So I asked her, I'm like, how are you? She's like, it's been a hard day. Like it's the sort of personal conversation where I also thought I would never know her to want to intrude. But here we are. So when I said, oh, how are you today? And she was like, it's been a hard day, but I'm looking forward to, and then she tells me all these things she's done. So she's telling me, so she finished and I'm like, I am so glad you have made it this far. The cakes are here. And she's like, thank you. How much did they cost? And I'm like, you don't have to worry, because what I did was I added a note to it just to kind of take away, because I didn't want to have to haggle to her about it, because the intention was like anything to make her day. You know, I make cakes. I would make cakes in my sleep, but whatever cakes I give to this woman isn't going to make a dent to my income, whatever that looks like. If anything, the income will come in the form of the genuine satisfaction I will feel as a person that I helped another human being out. And if I couldn't make cakes, I would hire somebody to make the cakes if it will make a small difference to this woman's horrible experience and day. So I just said, no, not to worry about it. I've left a note just in case you feel you want a bit of clarity. And that was it. And what she probably didn't know and you wouldn't know, behind all the intention and awkwardness and humanity I was feeling, was because a family member, like my sister's husband, had died a year to the day this woman called me. So I was actually caught up in the same emotion of watching someone so close to me who had lost their husband, and someone I had to support in the most extraordinary way we didn't know how to do. Grief is such a very personal thing. And so for me, it was like, okay, I understand how difficult this is, even though two people are very two unique circumstances. So I never wanted to present what my similar experience of knowing somebody, what their grief was, to this woman. And it never played a part. And she will probably forever wonder why I was kind to her. And the simple reason for the kindness was that it was coming from a place of experience, which is that I had somebody in my life who had lost their husband, and it was nearly a day to the anniversary when this woman wanted a cake. So it was just a chance to give back and to also recognize that sometimes people are lonely in their grief journey, and whatever you can do to help them, whether it's a kind word or holding space for them or actually just going out of your way to support them where they are, just do that and move on. And yeah, that was it. That was such an extraordinary experience for me, more so this one, because I can tell this woman didn't need free cakes, okay? And I hadn't walked into the intention of giving her free cakes for anything in return. It was simply just exercising humanity and getting on with my life. And I think many years later, I think of the day that BBC, my local BBC radio, called me. I still wonder to this day if that woman had a hand in it. I will never know. And she will probably never know why I was kind to her. But we live in a world where you can almost assume things. And I have until this day wondered whether, because it never and still doesn't make sense to me how my local radio station called me to come and have a conversation about cake on one of their prominent shows. It's like, I have still wondered about how did we get here? How, not that I feel less deserving of the opportunity, but I don't walk around as if every opportunity is mine to take. Do you know what I mean? Like you almost wonder, how did the stars align? How did God use humanity to lead you to the space? And if I had to choose, a little part of me will always wonder if this woman and her connection and contacts had any influence to this thing. But I will never know. And that is part of the unusual experience of me. And I have quite a few stories to tell. At least I've told you 3 of those. And the last time I told you 2 of those. So let's see what I can dig out. But I think these are the most interesting ones that have stood out for me, and that have kind of like challenged me emotionally and drawn me out, and from which I've learned quite a lot. So cake making is not just about the business of cakes. It's also understanding the emotion of the customers you're dealing with in the times they are in, and managing that along the process. Because imagine the wife whose husband was cheating. If I didn't have the wisdom to say, okay, I'm staying out of it and I'm going to help you just get a cake and move along, what was I going to do? Pick up the phone and be like, girl, you know the conversation we had 2 days ago? Your husband turned up at my door, and some woman texts me saying her husband. Like, what will that do? Okay? But I had to stay out of it, not for just the professional relationship I had in this entangled web of a lying, cheating man. I had to stay out of it also because I had discernment to know that it is not important what you say. It is important how you say it and when you say it. So where was this married woman at in her journey of accepting her husband's dalliances and impropriety in these streets out here? Where was she, right? And did I even have the capacity to kind of like handle and most to the point, it wasn't even my problem like that, okay? So I let it go. And the next time I got called the B word and got told somebody was cheating on somebody and they didn't pick up the cake, I didn't know what to do and how to respond emotionally appropriately. And then the next time a widow calls and wants a cake, now I felt like, okay, I understand the emotion here and I can assist appropriately. So these are not just stories for the sake of chit chat. It is also to encourage you, if you're in this business of serving people, it's not all about money. It is also about it's also about humanity, showing kindness and being empathetic. Because sometimes, and I stand by this principle always, business is about serving people. It is not always about money. And the way you show them that you care is beyond just charging them what you are worth, what their products is worth. Because I could have still enforced my boundaries, sent this woman off her merry way, and I would never have known what her day ended up being, right? But many years later, when I think of this woman, I pray and I hope her situation has gotten better and her grief with time is more tolerable. But for me, I have peace in the decision, and it only cost me what, maybe up to the cakes themselves, the 12 was about 65 pounds of cake. 65 pounds of cake for my sleep, I'll take that any day. That's all. Let's see. Auntie J, I just want to see. Yeah, any situation is better than with cake, my dear. Any situation. Lollipop is back. Look, I was more focused today on telling the stories I needed to tell and not wander off, because I know me, my storytelling can take on like some zigzagging. And I was like, today my eyes are sore. As I'm talking to you, like every time I blink, I feel like there is salt in my eyes. I don't know if anybody feels that way, right? That's why I don't have any mascara or anything in my eyes. And I look like an alien if I do this. Can you see? An alien. So today I was focused on like telling the story, because the story, like the more I thought about it, I'm like, I've sat on these stories, like these stories do not have any identifying. These stories do not have any identifying information about who and what. The people that this encounter happened with, if they came back to this video today, they will know themselves. But I doubt there are people who sit here and watch me. I doubt. They will never. And if they ever did, I hope I told the story for the exact experience and more so for the teachable moments that came in it, right? So oh God, that was just like, yeah. Let's see. I'm sure the words you left her were more valuable than the amounts of money she would. Well, I hope, because Auntie Jackie, have I told you? I told you. As an African immigrant living in a Western society, like in England, I don't know for other immigrant people. I can speak for myself. One of the harshest realities I had to adapt myself to is how individualistic the society is. People care more about themselves, you know. So imagine going to just show an act of, because it's not just also just being kind as an African immigrant, you know. It is also a conditioning that has contributed. So I'm not saying I'm not a kind person, but I also understand the conditioning, the social and cultural conditioning that influences the sort of kindness as an African immigrant I feel like it can be a misfit in this society I live in. And I've spoken about my experience of the community I live in. That is not, it is a very white-centered community. And I'm not kind of contributing to the racial divide at all. I am just giving information about a society I live in and how that affects me. And the adjustment I constantly have to make to fit in and to have my own influence in it, right? So I was shocked by how people respond to kindness. The community or the general environment I live in, the culture that I live in England, or this part of the world that I live in, people would judge you like, why are you being kind to me? Why are you giving me cakes? Why? Like, people will judge you before they even think, actually, it's okay to get a cake and I don't want anything from you. Okay? And I realized that it's not their fault that they're questioning my intention. It's because that is their conditioning. Their conditioning is like they care about themselves. Like, it is very individualistic. It's very nuclear. It is them, their children. And that is why children can just, by the time they're 18, like, mom and dad, bye, and they're gone. And they've gone to Australia, and you call them, they're the next of kin. And this is like true experience. You call them, you're like, mom is poorly, they're in a care home. It's like, I haven't seen mom in a long time, so I think I'm going to call my brother to see. And it's like they're so nonchalant. And that's where the conditioning comes in. Because where I come from, you are innately conditioned growing up to be kind, not just to be nice to your mom and dad, the neighbors. Like, it's a whole, when we talk about a village bringing you up. And so when you know the value of a village, and that is your well to draw from, and then you end up in a village that has no well to draw from. It's like, this well is dry. Kindness can be awfully difficult to express. Because left to me alone, these people will have cakes every day and I wouldn't even mind. Because that is where my well of satisfaction comes from. And that's not just kindness, that is community. But these people aren't interested in your community over here, okay? And it's not a black and white thing, okay? And I don't want anyone to take away from this about the world is divisive as it is. If you are taking anything from what I'm saying, I'm just telling you that if you're confused about that immigrant who sees you in the morning and smiles at you, let me tell you, they want to be seen, because it is hard existing in a society that just wants you to get to the bus stop, put your earplugs in and kick your bus and go home. It is incredibly lonely, especially for those of us who have come from villages. And I mean villages as in the metaphorical village of having a community of people support you. That's all. So yeah, Auntie J, I really hope she appreciated it, but I was just more concerned about just being like a human being in that moment. But like I said, like last time I said to Dawn, maybe I should stop talking smack about my neighbors, because if you've gone back to some of my old videos, one of my neighbors across the place, their family member left a comment in the comment section to say, oh, nice to meet you. I've heard a lot of things about you. Like, and they actually told me their dad, and I know their dad and their family live like, and so they are now in my comment section telling me how nice it is to finally encounter me online, by the way. I've never met them. So it's like, because I acquaint with the neighbor has told the family member who lives far away, and somehow they found me online and they left such a nice comment. And suddenly it makes me think, oh God, don't go watch some of the videos where I'm like moaning about my unfriendly neighbors. I should stop talking about them. Because the neighbors that are nice to me are nice, you know, but some of them just want to be left alone. And I think for someone whose conditioning comes from like a community of a village. It's like being left alone is like, do you really? So that is just by the way. So my people, Fado, happy Friday. Lollipop, what have you been up to, people? I haven't even had breakfast. What have you guys been up to? I've been here telling you my weird cake baking experience, my customer encounter experience, unusual customer encounter experiences. But what are we up to? Because after today we are back to baking. Okay, don't take my story for it. We are just back to baking. And then maybe I'll come back and tell you some more stuff. All right, let's see what's in. Lollipop says it should be about the humanity. Business shouldn't get in the way of being kind. Oh my dear, have you heard those people who say, oh, you're building a business, not a charity? And I think, yeah, if you're building a business, there are some attitudes you have to employ to support your own sustainability and growth and ultimately financial success. But I think that saying is almost generally so misconstrued, okay? Because then it's like, if you don't contextualize that saying, where does the business start and where does the humanity and charity begin? I mean, it doesn't mean, like, this story doesn't necessarily mean I go about giving cakes to every and any Tom, Dick, and Harry. But I wouldn't mind having to make a cake for a good cause and not even bat an eye. It doesn't make me a good person. It just makes me like a human being. Because what kind of human being are you? Because some of us, look, whilst I make cakes, right? And you probably relate to me as a cake maker, teacher, however you define your relationship with me here, you don't see me from the prism of if I woke up and I was just making cakes for fun, okay? And at some point, that is where I emotionally exist. The subject of cake is an emotional thing for me. I get really excited because I love the thing. I have had to work hard to get away from that so that I can establish it as a business. But where necessary, it's my default setting. Okay, I go back to that place where it's like, if I didn't have to sell a cake, I'll probably still be making cakes and talking about cakes to random people who wouldn't give a crap about cakes and will still be looking at me and be like, that weirdo, she can't get over talking about cakes, because that is how much it excites me. And so that excitement is tied to my care of not just the subject matter, but the people it serves. So I will give a cake for a good cause if I'm called to it, and it won't be about the money. Okay, I will support efforts to make someone's day if necessary, you know. But then again, having spoken about the balance of being able to remain charitable or be helpful with your business whilst maintaining boundaries, look at where we've come from to a couple of years later when I had to make somebody in my circle of acquaintanceship. They wanted a cake. They were in a desperately difficult situation. I couldn't afford to just make a cake willy-nilly and give it away for free. You know what I did? I sent them a list of items they can pick up. They sent it over and I made them a cake that would be valued an X amount over a couple of £100. But because I knew they couldn't afford it, but I also couldn't afford to make that X cake and then give it away for free just for the sake of, we met in the middle ground. Do you see what I'm saying? So sometimes humanity isn't just about putting your neck on the line. Humanity is also about assessing what your ability and limitation is. And for £65 cake, yes, cupcakes, because the value of the cupcakes in terms of how much I sold it for would be £65. In terms of how much I made it for, it wouldn't be that amount of money. So essentially, I had ingredients, which are always available, by the way. And then what I did was chew my time in to help another human being. And then fast forward years later, I couldn't afford that X amount, that cake in X amount of value, because £65 and over £100 are two different things. So the middle ground was that you get the stuff and what I'll give you is my time and skill. And that was it. So sometimes you have to look at the situation from where you are and what you can do rather than a one like principle to everything else. But then again, that is it, people. I could tell you a few more stories, but that would be drawing it out. Hopefully you've learned something here today about cakes not just being flour, sugar, and everything else in between. There's more to it. There's humanity to give, there is love to express, and there is joy to give when you make a cake that you really have put your heart into producing. So that's it. I'll see you on the next one. Lollipop, Jackie, Formata, and all of you, I'll see you on the next one.